Welcome to this tutorial of Juxtaposer and Over. First of all, go into Juxtaposer. This is an iPad or an iPhone app. You need to open up a new project, so click on the top left and click Start New Session. You will have two images that you need to bring up. Click on Load Photo, go to Recently Added if you've got your photos in there. You can see I've got a selection of Strathallan-based photographs. Pick the photo you want to use as your background. For this one, I'm just using an off-white colour because I want to create an aged effect. Click on Top Image and select an image to put on top. I've picked the Strathallan First Headmaster Harry Riley. You can move them around with a little cursor in the middle of the screen. Decide on how big, how small, whereabouts you want to put your first image. Once you're happy, you can rotate it. I'm quite happy with it in that position. I'm now going to rub out some of the background because I only really want the figure. So I'm just going around and I'm erasing around the outline of the figure at the moment. If you want to unerase, there's a button for that as well, next to the erase button. So again, I'm just going around the outside and I'm getting rid of most of the background. To make this a little bit neater, you can also zoom in, which makes it easier to rub out sort of difficult sections. You can actually get really, really close, as you can see in this little clip. Now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to show you how to use more of a blended sort of rubber effect. If you click on the top right, you'll see there's a little paintbrush. You have two options, feathering and translucency. If you select translucency and feathering, you will get a sort of more blurry sort of rubber, which is actually quite handy when you want to kind of blend two images together. I'll show you in a second the feathering technique where you choose translucency but you don't choose feathering, and actually get a sort of slightly wider blur, which is actually a little bit nicer. I think I'm going to use that in a second for some of the background. So again, just use your rubber effect. Again, I quite like this because it kind of gives it a slightly more atmospheric sort of aged look, and it helps to kind of blend the background slightly into the figure. So again, if you need to zoom in, if you're worried about making mistakes, you can. Again, just to reiterate, this is an iPhone app and an iPad app. Both apps, Juxtaposer and Over, which we'll use later on, are both for iPhone and iPad, so both work just as well. Obviously, the format will be slightly different on an iPhone to an iPad, but they're very similar. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out, and I think I'm going to just do a little bit of rubbing out here because I think need to just creep in a little bit more along his trouser leg, just to make that a little bit more in proportion. Happy with that now, so I'm going to zoom out, and I'm just going to skip forward a little bit so you can see it with a little bit more done, a couple more images added in. So I'm just going to jump forward in time slightly, so you can now see that I'm going back and I've added a few more images and overlaid them on top. I'm just going to show you kind of how to do this. So I'm going to select another image from my sort of Strathallan folder. Just having a look at which one I want to pick from. I think I'm going to go for a view of the lake with some of the boarding houses, and I want to put that in this sort of top left-hand section. So again, decide where you want to place it. You can make it smaller, larger. It's entirely up to you. And I'm going to try and blend this in. So you'll notice on this time, I'm just deciding on where I want to put it. I'm just looking again, just going out just to check exactly where I want it. I do want it in this sort of top left. You'll notice I'm using my rubber and I'm going to rub out the whole image. Now the reason for that is I want to sort of unerase it and bring it back in, but I want to do it using this translucency sort of effect where I get a very light I use the opacity basically to make it, it's very, very light and translucent, and you can just see it almost like a sort of ghostly apparition sort of appearing in the distance, and it creates this nice effect, and it kind of goes along with this sort of older aged look. So again, it's just creeping into the background, and it kind of merges in nicely to the picture. Making sure obviously not to add in any of the outer edges of the photograph, as that will sort of ruin the overall effect. Again, you can add more in or less, it's entirely up to you. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to add another image. So you go to add another image, and I'm going to add another layer. So this time I'm adding a photograph of the first girls class, the 1979 year group at Strathallan. So I'm going to add that year group in, and I want them sort of in this bottom left hand corner because there's not much going on in this section. So I'm going to add this in, just getting the size and the scale right. I'm going to change the translucency back to a normal rubber, and I'm going to rub out the entirety of this image. So same as I did with the image of the boarding house and the lake. I'm going to rub that out. I'm now going to choose my unerase tool, which is in the top right of the center, and I'm going to put the translucency back on, and I'm going to unerase it. I'm going to bring it back in, but very lightly.